Hey Stacey, welcome to the Hidden White podcast. Great to have you here.
Yeah, awesome to be here. Thank you.
Man, you've got an incredible story. I saw you speak recently and I was just blown away. It was one of those presentations where you just walk away left in awe, basically. That's how I felt. So thank you.
Oh wow. Yeah, no, I mean I do get a lot of good feedback from that, but it's funny because when you're telling your own story, because you've lived it, you don't think it's anything spectacular. So, but then
Yep.
when people come up and go, "Oh my God," you're like, "Oh, is it really that bad? Is it really that full on?" And my keynote presentation is toned down, fluffed over, because you don't want to go too deep, traumatize people. So yeah, when you get that feedback, it's like, oh God, yeah.
No, it's incredible. And you have a story. So I want to start with your story. Because you've got an incredible story of resilience and success through that. And I think I was thinking about this the other day. We don't allow our children these days to build resilience because we wrap them in cotton wool.
Yeah,
That's how I feel. And your childhood was somewhat exceptional in that you had almost no cotton wool around you.
yeah,
And I think that helped create your resilience. But maybe just let's start with your story. I mean, you had a fairly challenging upbringing.
yeah, definitely. So I was removed from my mum's care when I was like 2 months old.
Yep.
Dad got custody of me, and yeah, I grew up with dad who was like, I love my dad to death, but he was so dysfunctional. Like he was like a child. He was just the funnest dad for a teenager to just have a dad that had no rules, no boundaries. Like I could literally do whatever I wanted.
Mm.
Um, but he was just I can't even explain him. He was just yeah, it was a really tough upbringing. I had a stepmom when I was two. I think dad met her and I was petrified of that woman. She's nice to this now, but back when I was little, I was, there was a lot of there wasn't a lot of there was no drugs, no alcohol or anything like that, but there was a lot of stuff that went on that
Hmm.
as a little girl I was really petrified. And then I would go, I don't remember growing up with my mum, but I do remember visiting mum. And when I did visit her once, her partner abused me. And so I never felt safe anywhere.
Right.
I didn't stay at mum's often, but that's what happened there. And so I just kind of never felt safe anywhere.
So that, what about your teenage years? Like, how did you feel with living with your dad who gave you absolute freedom? Obviously, as a teenager, that would have been quite exciting and fun because you could do what you want, whereas all the other kids probably couldn't. But there must have been a bit of internal trauma or struggle there as well.
Oh, there definitely, looking back now, there would have been, but
Hmm.
I didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
But I was just living. I was just living and making, like, if I wanted to do something, I'd just do it. And I think looking back now, because I had the freedom to do whatever I wanted, like if I wanted to smoke cigarettes, I could. If I wanted to drink alcohol, I could. Like my house was the house that, the parents would knock on the door with my friends and say, "Oh, is my daughter allowed to stay here the night?" And my dad would say, "Yeah, no worries, they're just going to watch movies and all that." But what my dad had done is gone down to the bottle shop, grabbed a heap of grog, and everyone would get blind drunk. Like it was just that was the party house. But because I could do it, I didn't want to do it. And
Hmm.
so, you know, if my friends came over when I was living in the shed at 14, they'd be smoking weed out there whilst I was out working in a factory, earning money to buy clothes. Because back in when I was 14, I was living in the shed and country road jumpers were the in thing back then. And all I wanted was
Country.
this country road jumper. And all of my friends had them because all of their parents had the money to buy them.
Yeah.
And so I would just, you know, go and work in a factory putting Easter egg hampers together to earn this $70 for this jumper, whilst my friends were there smoking weed in the shed. But I wasn't
With
interested in it. I wanted to work. I wanted to earn money. I was always a worker.
yeah.
And I think because I didn't have parents buy me anything. Um,
Where do you think that came from? Like that work ethic and desire to work? Because I can sort of relate. I've always wanted to work. somewhat a workaholic.
Again, looking back now that I've done a lot of work with, trauma and stuff like that, I think it was my trauma. Instead of putting into addictions and numbing my mind with drugs and
Right.
alcohol and stuff, I think my trauma was working constantly because I couldn't
So
sit still.
escapism through work.
Yeah, I think it might have been.
Yeah,
I
that makes sense.
or just having no money that
Yeah.
I
Well,
wanted
that's true.
things. Like in order for me to get out of situations I've been in, I've needed money.
Yeah.
To get money, you've got to work.
Hmm.
Even when I was homeless with the two kids, I had the 4-month-old and a 4
Hmm.
money. And so I had to get a job. Um,
So
by
pregnant
the
at a young
time,
age?
pardon?
Pregnant at a young age?
Yeah, so I fell pregnant at 15.
15. Tell us
Yep.
that story.
Oh God, I had no idea that you could. I honestly had no idea how you even got pregnant, right? So we didn't have internet, or I didn't have a mum, nothing like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just said to Dad one day, he was standing in the kitchen in his jocks and he was showing me the hernia on his belly button. I said, shit, Dad, I got one of those too. And he said, go to the doctors. And so went to the doctors and he said I was pregnant. I didn't have a hernia. So I ran home and I threw the test at Dad, and Dad went out and bought a cask of wine to celebrate my pregnancy. So again, it wasn't a big deal. It was like, oh yeah, and I had no idea. I didn't even know what to do. I didn't know to go to the doctors. I didn't know, um, even when I was giving birth, like the lady's like, I was screaming and I'm saying, my back is so sore. And I didn't have anyone in the room with me. I was on my own. And I was crying for my dad. I'm like, I want my dad. And the lady said, right, Stacey, I think it's time the baby comes. You need to take your pants off. And I said, I'm not taking my pants off. And she said, well, we need to get the baby out. I'm like, well, where's this baby coming from? I was so naive.
Well,
So, yeah. And so I still continued school. I walked every single day because we didn't have a car. And again, I wanted to be educated. Like
yeah.
I don't know where this drive come from. I don't know. But
Hmm.
I just and even like I really wanted a car because Dad hardly ever had a car. And if he did, he'd buy it for $150. It'd blow up. He'd have it for about 6 months, blow up, never get it registered, no roadworthy, nothing. He'd have no license. And then it'd blow up. And then we'd have a no car for the next year until he found $150 bargain again. And so I wanted a car by the time I turned 18 for my baby,
Yeah.
because he would have been 2 by then. And so again, after school, I got a job at a cafe. I worked after school. I worked on weekends um, to earn money to save, because my boyfriend's dad said to me, he was a mechanic, no, a panel beater.
Yeah.
And he said, Stacey, if you save for this car, I'll help you find a really good one. He said, you need to. So I saved $1,600 for that.
Yeah.
It was just a Holden VB Commodore. Um, but yeah,
Awesome.
I was just so driven to be a good mum. I just wanted to be a good mum. You know why? Because I didn't have a mum growing up.
Yeah.
That was my drive.
Well, I think a lot of those circumstances for you has driven you, to work more, to earn money, to get your own things, to have more security, I suppose. Because at a while there, with your child, you were actually homeless as well, right?
Yeah, so I was homeless at 19 with the two kids. So I had the 4-month-old and a 4-year-old. So
Yeah.
I moved out at 17. I got myself a unit,
Yeah.
and with my little one, he was
Yeah.
about 1 at the time, I think 1.5 or something like that. And I was pregnant at the time with my second child. So I
Yeah.
was on my own. I was going to TAFE at this stage, and I was working part-time at a bakery cafe thing. And the lady that owned the unit, she's divorced from her partner. And so she said, I'm moving back in, you need to move out. And I literally had nowhere to go. I mean, I could have gone to Dad's, but I couldn't live in the shed with the two kids.
Hmm.
It was a dingy old shed. It wasn't a done up one with bloody, walls and stuff like that. It was literally a shed that was just a concrete floor and aluminium and all that.
Yeah.
I couldn't go back into Dad's house because it was a 3-bedroom house. I've got, you know, 5 brothers and sisters living in there, dad and my stepmom. I could have lived in the lounge room, but it was just too chaos. I couldn't stand the chaos in that place. It was just always dirty. I'm over the top OCD clean.
Right.
And I ended up being homeless.
Yeah.
Um, and just had to sleep on a friend's floor with just in her lounge room floor because she lived out the back of her parents' house. So I lived on her floor with no mattress, just a blanket and pillow. But again, I'd always lived rough all of my life. So I honestly, it didn't even bother me. Like looking back now, like I think because I was so uncomfortable all the time, living in that condition, I didn't feel scared or anything. I don't know why. I don't
Mm.
know why I didn't care.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you lived yeah, homeless a lot on your friends' floors, 2 kids, working. How do you manage to juggle all that? Like what goes through someone's mind at that age? Or you're just resilient and just keep going.
Again, I honestly think it was the trauma that I was just in fight, flight, it just boom. I that's all I can put it down to because
Hmm.
I'm like, how did I not ever get an addiction to anything? Because I've got a son that's had 2 sons that have had addiction and stuff, and I'm looking at them going, how on earth did I get through that with
Hmm.
no addictions whatsoever? But I think my addictions was working. That's why I keep thinking that. But again, I needed a job to earn money to get out of my situation that I was homeless. So is it trauma or is it because you just got to earn money?
Just got to do it.
Um, you just got to do it. I didn't have a mum or dad I could fall back on to. I couldn't go to my dad and ask for money. He didn't have money. He lives in
Hmm.
housing commission. I didn't have a mum. Like I've got a mum, but I never had much to do with her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I could never ring any of my parents and ask for money or help out of the situations I'm in. Yes, my dad looked after the kids when I needed help. Can you just look after the kids while I either go night clubbing, or something dysfunctional? Um, but I was going to TAFE. I had to take the kids with. When I was living on the floor, I was actually going to TAFE. So during the days, 3 days a week, they'd go into the childcare at TAFE.
Yeah.
So that helped me a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
And then childcare and before school care and after school care, I just had to juggle.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you went through, fast forward to today.
Yeah.
Um, you're quite successful. You're a speaker. You work with companies. Tell us a bit about your life today.
Yep. So 21, I had the 3 kids. I was in
Yeah.
domestic violence. I had won my dream job after 7 years of knocking on this guy's door.
Yeah. Tell us about that
Being
dream job.
So that was being a funeral director. I just had an absolute dream. I saw a man being hit and killed by a car when I was little. And so that was my vision. That's all I wanted to do. And I finally made that happen by knocking on this guy's door every single 6 months for 7 years.
Yeah.
And he finally gave me a go. And I couldn't even believe it. I ended up, moving into a beautiful new house, like nothing spectacular. But back then, to me, it was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like there was a hill. When I drive the kids to school in my little dingy unit, over the hill was this really beautiful area, where there was nice houses. And I said to the kids, one day we are going to live over that hill. And
Mm.
because of this job, I was able to rent a house over that hill. So anyway, I'm pretty much living the dream. Cannot believe that I've won my dream job. And then my son ended up at the age of 9 with mental health issues, really bad to the point where he tried to take his life at school.
Mm.
And so I had to resign. And the only thing I could think of, because I couldn't work full time because I needed to be there for the son, I couldn't take time off work. I just thought I'm going to have to build a business. And so I spoke to my boyfriend. It's the guy I'm with today, been with him for
Yeah.
21 years. And he had a hobby. And I said, can I turn your hobby into a business? And so together we built this business. And then from that, I don't know how it was, but I was invited to be an ambassador for a foundation for teenage mums. And then from that, I was asked to do media interviews. And then from that, I was invited to do speaking. So
Yeah.
that's how all that happened. So yes, I speak on stages to corporate audiences. And I absolutely bloody love it. It's so good. Yeah, it's fun. It's a little side hustle thing that I'm really passionate about.
And so still running the business.
Yeah,
So
yep.
tell
So
us a
we've
bit about
still,
that journey to that business, because that's quite an interesting story too.
as in,
So it was your boyfriend's hobby
yeah, yeah.
that you
So
then
he
said,
raced
I'm gonna,
go-karts
yeah, yeah. Tell us
and
that story.
he used to print his stickers for his go-kart because he was a tight ass. And I just said to him, we had just met where I was working doing it. So I was an accountant's assistant, doing a 4-year traineeship.
Yeah,
He was working there as well, and that's how we met. He used to annoy me every time, every lunchtime, I'd be reading my newspaper because we didn't have the internet back then. So I'd read the Herald Sun and he'd come and sit in the office and start chatting to me. And I'm like, fuck, I just want to read my newspaper, mate. And he was annoying the crap every day. And anyway, but I had to be not, and then all the girls would say, oh, he's a bit cute. And I'd say, really? He's not my type. God. Anyway, he asked me out for lunch one day and I'm like, oh, go out for lunch and check him out and see, no intention of anything behind
yeah,
it, or just having a mate. And so we started to go out a bit more and nothing, we weren't sleeping at each other's houses. It was just, we'd just go for walks. Anyway, he asked me to go to the go-kart track one day to go in his cart, went there. And then, yeah, he just used to print his own stickers on that. And so I said, hey, can I, because I was actually looking for a business at that time doing
yeah.
bookkeeping or accounting, or I was looking for a business idea. I knew I had to get into business.
Hmm.
And, that's when then I won my dream job, and that was at the funeral company. I thought,
Right.
okay, beauty, I've won that because I never thought I would. So I ended up, like I said, my son almost taking his life. I
Yeah.
then ring my boyfriend up and said, listen, I've have to resign from this job today. Like I have to resign. Can I just help you build your business? Like I'll run it whilst you're working. And he was like, no, you don't know anything about business. Like seriously. And I said, just let me do it. And so I just took over. I knew from the 7 years of failing and knockbacks that it took me to win my dream job, plus getting because the funeral guy used to say, he'd say to me, stay at the first year of
Yeah.
trying to get this job, he said, go and get a job in an office, Stacey, so that you've got some kind of experience. Because I looked like a bum back then when I first started knocking. I was very disheveled. That's when I was homeless. You can imagine I wasn't dressed nice. I didn't wear makeup, didn't have my hair done. Rock up at his knock door with the 2 kids, mate, I'm homeless. Can I have a job? Of course, he's going to look me up and down and say no. So he said, the second time I knocked, he said, Stacey, just go and get a job in an office, like get some kind of experience. And so I got in my little Holden VB Commodore and I went knocking on every single factory door where I
Yeah.
lived in this industrial area looking for an office job. Mate, have you got an office job? Nah, 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 nah. Took me about 50 knockbacks for this
Yeah.
guy to then say, oh, ring me in 30 days and I'll get back to you. So I rang him in 30 days. I'm like, mate, I'm still ready, And he gave me an opportunity. He said, right, let's get you onto this 4-year traineeship. I ended up smashing it within three years because I
Yeah.
just was so passionate about it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I knew that it would take me at least 100 phone call sales to win a job because I knew knocking on all those doors to win a job.
Yeah.
So anyway, I get on the phone, I get the yellow pages out because that's what I had back then, and I just rang every single bloody retail company that I could find and just asked them, do you need, because it was called signs and banners back then, printing. And I'd say, do you need any signs or banners? Have you, and all these big companies were saying yes. And I'm like, oh my God. And Dave's like, Stacey, we got no machinery because we had nothing to print all this stuff on. So I ended up just saying, oh God, you're negative. And I went and found these big printing companies and I asked them, can they print it for me? And I'd get out, because we had this tiny little place and I'd get the huge banners. Like I remember Clive Peters was one of the biggest jobs that I won. And they wanted these massive ass 5-10 meter banners. So I'd unroll them. Like I'd go and pick them up from the printing company. I'd have to come and unroll them to make sure that they're printed properly. and I'd be in a car park out the front in the bloody rolling all these massive ass banners out. It just brings back
Wow.
memories of, yeah. So and then I
You
just
just
kept
did it. You
doing it.
just did it.
Just did it with nothing. Yeah.
Like, so you made the calls, you knew, like, it's a numbers game. So just make calls, make calls, make calls until you get a yes.
Yeah.
And then you go, shit, I need some machinery or someone to print these now. So then you go out there and resource that. Very resourceful by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
And then you just do it with what you've got.
Yes. And then I literally had nothing. I didn't even, and I think that's the best part of it. I think that is where most people that succeed is they don't wait for everything to be perfect,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
didn't even know all this machinery. I had no idea. And then we started to invest back into the business to buy our own machinery and do it
Do your
that
own
way.
printing.
Yeah.
So that printing company still exists?
Yeah.
Yeah. So still
Yeah.
run that. Wow.
Yeah. So it's
What a journey.
yeah, no, it's been really exciting. And but again, I do presentations on the side that I'm really passionate about. So I've got my corporate ones, and I also work for a charity foundation where I do presentations at schools. It's just my little side hustle, because I'm not really passionate about printing.
Yeah.
I love the business, but I'm not passionate about it.
Yeah, fair.
So I need that thing on the side that I'm so deeply passionate about, and that's my presentations.
Yeah. So that
Yes.
you need meaningful work, right?
Yep.
Because it's good
100%.
to you've found, the level of security through your business,
Yep.
and now you're trying to give back. And you've got a lot to give with your journey and stories, I'm sure.
Yep.
What 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 is fulfilling about that? Like giving back? Like, is it helping people get through challenge, helping them build resilience? What are the tools that you can give people?
Well, firstly, I just I always, when I was younger, I loved drama. I loved that I got to just act. At school, the teachers would say, Stacey, you need to be an actress one day when you're older. So I love that sense of it. I love getting on a stage and I love just talking, but seeing the feedback, seeing that it actually changes lives
Hmm.
is just the icing on the cake, because I
Yeah.
never thought that that's what would happen to me. So as I was changing my life, as you can imagine, like I was really criticized and judged when I was a nobody, when I was homeless, when I was dysfunctional. Even though I wasn't dysfunctional, like looking it back in society, I probably was, but I didn't know I was.
Hmm.
I always thought I was a good person. I was a good mum. I tried my absolute best to be the best mum I could in the situations I was in, but I was still judged and criticized. But then, even when I had success, I was still criticized.
Yeah.
So, when I've got, where's my point? Where am I going from this? There was a point as to why I was saying this. Where was I at?
So being judged and criticized when you were not successful, and then when you were successful.
Yeah, but I was talking about when I'm speaking on stages, why, what I love about it.
Hmm.
Oh God, I've just lost that. Yeah, I just lost it, but there was a really good point there. So yeah, being no matter, yeah,
So
God,
having
what
the
was I?
impact of
Part
creating change in other people when you're presenting.
Oh, 100%. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Oh, okay, you've helped me
Hmm.
realize. So as I was getting more successful and building the business, like because everyone in my life, my past, always said, "Oh, Stacey's look at her, the way she's living. Oh, she's just a scumbag." One of this favorite line this guy used to say to me all the time: "You've been dragged up like an animal, not a human." He was so nasty. This guy, he'd call me all the names you can imagine every single day of my life. I just felt like the most worthless piece of shit that
Hmm.
anyone had ever made me feel. But then when I had success, I was so proud of myself. Like I didn't big note myself for everyone. Like when I got my VB Holden Commodore, I was so excited. And it wasn't to big note myself and to show off, but I was deeply so excited in myself that I went and drove around to my friends' houses, tooted the horn, beep, beep, come and look at me car. Like, I honestly didn't know that I was showing off. But apparently, you know, they all thought I was a show off and being full of myself, but I was genuinely so excited about this.
Mm.
And so when I started to build, like when I won my dream job, I was so freaking excited. I couldn't believe it. And I get a letter in my letterbox saying from someone who's meant to, be one of my biggest fans, not fan, but someone that should be happy that I've turned my life around. He
Yeah.
wrote me a letter and said, "Oh, you think you're too good for everyone now, blah, blah." Like, even when I was going to counseling, it was court ordered.
Interesting.
My dad, he sort of said that counselor's brainwashing you, Stacey, because when I was this small and doing nothing, I was judged. But then when I started to get success, so anyway,
Mm.
when I was building the business, I was so proud of myself. I thought, now these people are going to think something that I'm doing good in life.
Yeah.
But there was someone there that was constantly blackmailing me because I wanted everyone to know that I was, not to know, but I just wanted to feel successful and that I looked good and I was dressed well and he kept saying to me, someone in my past, you wait till your customers find out that you have been a teenage single mum, that you grew up without a mum, that you were homeless. Look, I'm going to tell everyone what you've done. And oh my God,
Wow.
it petrified me that these people would find out the truth of my life. I had a lot of shame about my life. Like,
Mm.
you think me telling my story today that I'm okay. And back then I had so much shame. I couldn't even tell the funeral guy that I got that job why I wanted to resign. Like, I couldn't tell him because I had so much shame about my life.
Yeah.
So this guy telling me, you wait till I'm going to tell your customers. I'm like, oh my God. Not only did I have to give up on my dream job, now I've built a successful business. He's going to tell all my customers, I'm going to lose this business.
Mm.
And so I decided that I was going to write a book. I thought, stuff this. I'm going to put my story into a book and I'm going to send it to my customers. And I wrote my first book. I don't even promote it because it's a pretty shit book. But back then, there was no intention for this book to go anywhere but to stop this guy blackmailing me to tell people my story that I
Yeah.
was so shameful of. So I wrote this book. And that's when all these people got their hands on it. It started to get, that's how I got into the ambassador, the media. And I was like, oh my God, I don't need to be shameful of this story. Like, it's actually helping other people.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
that's how that all started. And that's why when I was getting on stages, I felt proud to share my story then.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it does help a lot of people looking at their own lives, about choices, about acting greater than how you feel. Because I never felt good enough. I never felt smart enough, and I never felt worthy enough. But I always just acted greater than how I was feeling. And so, that's why I tell other people in the audience. And one of the
Yeah.
things I find that hold most people back is the opinions of others.
Yeah.
And again, when I talk about that, a lot of people come up to me and say to me, I just loved hearing that. So
That's
I
really
just
important.
love speaking about all these things that I was shameful of, but I'm now so bloody proud of my story.
So have you found through speaking and telling your story those like acting greater than how you feel? Like tell us about that. Like is that a discovery you came across by speaking and presenting and sharing your story?
Oh,
Because,
God, yeah. I mean,
because that's a
well,
really good tool. Like it sounds so basic, doesn't it? Acting greater than how you feel, but what
yeah,
is that?
absolutely. Well, and I say it when I was homeless, sleeping on the floor. Like, I never felt good enough at that time. I never felt worthy of. I had the shittest clothes. I had nothing, but I didn't wake up and go, "Oh, I'm so poor." I didn't even know, but I didn't know to go. So I had to knock on a door. Even waking up on that morning, thinking, "Fuck, I just don't know what to do with my life. I'm just going to have to go and knock on a door." And I look at a lot of people in this day and age that have got everything. They've got a house, they've got a
Mm,
beautiful partner, they've got kids, they've got the car, yet they won't pick up the phone and
yeah,
ring and make sales. They don't want to knock on a door because they don't feel ready. They don't feel like they're worthy enough, They don't feel smart enough. And so that's where I got it from that. And so um, even the stages, like when I was first asked to speak, one of my very first gigs was at an Endota conference,
mm,
and I was paid like $200, and I just turned up had never practiced, didn't know what I was talking about. I stood up and I couldn't speak. I just started crying. And the lady had to come and stand beside me, give me a chair, sit me down, and I still couldn't get it out. I look back at that now and I'm like, how freaking embarrassing. Like they hired me as their speaker and I can't even speak. I got through it, but it was just so bad, so cringe. And then I was asked to speak at another PR event. That was one of my second, I think that was my second. Again, I had no practice, didn't know what I was doing. And I just kept failing and failing and failing until practice,
Until you got it.
and yeah, and I just acted greater than how I was feeling because I never felt, still to this day, when you saw me on stage, I don't
Mm.
feel that I'm worthy to be on those stages. Like, who am I? I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a bloody Olympic gold medalist. I'm just a little old me. I mean, I'm doing a gig to all these 200 members of Parliament at Parliament House in the next few weeks, like little old
Yeah.
me, you know. Um,
Amazing. Acting
yeah,
greater than how you feel. Because there's, we can't have days where we just feel great and unstoppable. We often have days where you're feeling a bit down and shit and bad, sometimes weeks of it or months of it.
oh,
But
absolutely.
the courage to actually step up even when you're feeling shit and do something about it is really what's important.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've
And I,
got a son that's got battling mental illness, you know, and I've had to get on stages knowing that when I get off, he could potentially not be here anymore.
mm,
And I've just had to do it. You know, I've had to
yeah,
get on with it. And I don't, some of the shit that I've been going through in the last 3 years is if anyone's been through and is listening to this and they've had someone with addiction and mental illness issues, they would know the trauma, the terror and all of that you live with. And to have to get up every day and get on with it, it's a whole new level, you know. But you've just got, you just have to. Otherwise, what's the other alternative?
how do you
Do
think people,
nothing?
because there's a lot of people out there that I think would love to do more with their life, have more meaning, find more joy in the work that they do, find more ways to give back. Yet, like I said earlier on, like we just feel this way and we go, oh, well, I'm not going to do anything about it. You had, in life, not many choices, so you had to do it, right?
Yeah,
Whereas a lot of people, they're just like, well, I've got my home here, I've got my parents there, I can, don't have to do it if I don't want to, I guess. And you sit back and then you don't get anywhere in life.
yeah.
And one thing that terrifies me is living with regret, that I haven't tried the things that I want to do. But where do you, inspire others to have that courage to go beyond how they feel?
I don't know. I don't know how. I mean, I can just tell my story, and some people will go, "Yep." I mean, I've got you know, someone in my life who I know has lived to, acted greater than how she's feeling. She's now living her dream, doing something she never thought possible
Yeah,
by making that scary decision. But some people have got it, others just don't have it.
yeah,
And that's just the way it is. I mean, I've got a really good balance in my life at the moment. Could I build that business into an even bigger empire? Absolutely. Do I want to? No, because it's going to stop me from doing the things I love.
mm,
And for me, it's not all about how much money I can earn because I've earned the big dollars in the business and then I nearly lost my son. So I just need to have that fulfilling. So
yeah,
um, I honestly don't know because I know so many people who are hustling and hustling and hustling their asses off to earn more money, more money. They want bigger this, bigger that, bigger that. But they're as miserable as
yeah,
crap.
yeah,
They're so stressed. They're not living and they are so stressed that I'm like, mate, they're gonna have a heart attack soon.
mm,
Um, because they don't have that little thing that they're so passionate about. Like my presentations that I do at schools, I earn so little that this lady that I worked with a few years ago, she was so angry at me for doing this because she's like, you're just playing small. You just, don't you even think you're worthy of anything more? And I said, mate, this gives me so much fulfillment that I would rather earn this little dollar than go and win $100,000 job doing something else that I'm not passionate about. Like, I freaking love this.
Yeah, yeah, nice.
And I think a lot of people don't see it, that they just want more money, more money, more money, which I know we need money,
Yeah.
but how much do you really need to be, um, I don't know.
Well, it's a good question to ask, isn't it? Like, how much is enough? Because ultimately there is never enough in this world.
yeah,
And until we realize that, okay, this is actually enough for me,
yeah,
then you can get that and pursue other things that actually give you fulfillment and purpose. And I think a lot of, I'm 43 now, 44 soon. A lot of people at this age start to realize that, they've worked this hard and they've got that hustle happening, but they start to realize there's something missing. They don't have that level of meaning in their life. And if you don't have that, you can start to get really down and depressed and out of touch with what life is all about, right? And that's really human connection and contribution and things of that nature. So I
yeah.
think it's important to do exactly what you're doing, find that passion that lights you up and do it every day because that's going to bring you more joy in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got, like I said, my sons that struggle with their mental health. I've told them they need to have a little hobby. They need to have something they're passionate about, but they don't. And I can understand why, where people in my inner circle who have said to me, Stacey, I don't actually know how you get through what you've got through. Like, how are you a fully functioning human being with what you have been through and continue to go through? And I know the answer. It's because I've always had something on the side that I'm so passionate about. So it takes me away from, like when I'm one of my sons, I'm thinking, oh my God, is he going to take his own life? Is this going to happen today? Oh, but then I've got this thing that I get to practice on and I get to work on. And because I can't control what my son does.
Mm,
I can't control that anymore. And so I can only control what I do. And
mm.
so when I immerse myself in something that I'm really passionate about and I get to practice this and I get to try that and I get to do my lines or write it out or, I've written a second book even, through some of my son's toughest times because both of them ended up at the same time doing off the rails. I wrote my second book, and that took me out of what was
Yeah,
happening.
yeah.
So I didn't have to medicate myself. I didn't end up drinking to numb my mind. I put it into all these things that I'm so passionate about. And that's why I can get up in the morning. I go to gym. I love my gym. I love my beach walks. I love the work I do. But I don't love it every day. I don't love everything every day. There are times when I'm stressed to the eyeballs because of what's going on.
Mm.
But that's just a little breaker. It gives me that break to go back to that and go, this is what, brings me alive and makes me feel fulfilled.
Talk about, and you've sort of touched on this already, but being yourself and being comfortable in your own shoes. And I know you talked about when I saw you speak about how you sort of tried to tone yourself down a little bit because you've got this very ochre Aussie style about you, which I love.
Yeah.
But you felt like, oh, I can't be like this. I've got to be more proper. And I think that's a really important point. And you sort of talked about it when, you started your printing business and this guy was blackmailing you saying he's going to expose you. And then you said, okay, well, I'll write a book about my story and expose myself. And I
Yeah.
think that's really something that I've struggled with is to really step into my own self authenticity. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. So can you talk us through that and why that's so
Yeah.
important?
Yeah. Well, that's right. A lot of women, where I learned that one was from a lot of men and women, I should say, wear
Mm,
masks. And how I learned that was when my son was in primary school, there was this really glamorous, gorgeous, stunning woman that used to come to the school. And my friend made friends with her son. And every day she had a really nice little car. Like, I really looked up to her and I just idolized that she was just had her shit together. She looked, because I was a little teenage mum, go to the school. I was always the youngest, but she just looked just well dressed, nice car, everything.
yeah.
And one day she invited my son over to her house to hang out. And she said, can you pick him up at 5? So I pick him up and she answers the door and she's like, opens the door and she says, shh, just be quiet. partners in their husband and he gets really angry. And she goes, and I said, oh, okay, he gives us, tell him to stop his whinging or something. Like I said something like that. And she shut the door and she comes outside and she said, no, he gets really angry. She said, look, I'm going to leave him. So she started opening up to me about her whole life, telling me that he abuses her, that's his car. She doesn't own it. She doesn't own the house. It's all his. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I just looked at her like she was the most amazing person. And yet she's wearing this mask out. And so over the time, I realized that all these people just wear masks.
Mm.
And what I was seeing and putting them on pedestals and thinking they're above me and they're amazing, most of them have got more shit than what I've got going on. So I just ended up, I just live the way I live. And as my life was getting more successful, like I say in my keynote presentation, I started to be invited to prestigious, amazing, places. And I do remember one day going to Brighton in Melbourne. If you've been, it's one of the
Yeah.
la-di-da fancy places. And I had to speak at this event and I turn up and there's all these bloody gorgeous women with Gucci and Chanel, like amazing looking women. And I went up to the organizer and I actually said to her, listen, you know my story. Like, why have you invited me here? Like these freaking, they're posh as, mate. They're beautiful and rich and famous, like even famous people. And she goes, Stacey, we all shit the same. And I'm like, oh, okay. She goes, just, they'll love you. And I said, oh my, I was so nervous to do that keynote, so nervous. Yet afterwards, it was one of my most favorite keynotes ever. Like all these women, they were coming up going, oh my God, Stacey, that was me. And I'm like, oh, and they were so put together. And so I know it's a mask.
Mm.
We're all just wearing masks. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm just real now, because I can't tone myself down. It was, like I say on my keynote, I tried it for a week because I actually went and saw this guy, a male, and I was in his office sitting down for some counseling or something. I just wanted help with my boys. And I sat there and I was like, I just don't know how to fucking do this. Like, this is so fucking hard, swearing. And sorry if you don't want your
That's
audience to
so
hear me
good.
swearing. But he said, listen, can you stop swearing in my office? And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I didn't realize it. And after that, I just went home feeling so shameful of myself. I felt so much shame. So I stopped swearing for a week, and again, I tried not to swear. I tried to be a lady. And it was so boring. And I'm like, mate, I can't do this. I mean, I don't get on stages and say the F word. I don't go out and just say the F word to other people. But everyone around me was trying to tone me down and keep me in a little box. And I'm like, I can't do it. I can't deal with that. I just
Mm.
have to be me. And
Yeah.
so that's where that came from. And I do find that there are a lot of people that are trying to be so professional, trying to be put so together so that people would like them, so that people will respect them, but they lose themselves in it and they tone themselves so down so much that you actually end up with depression. I actually
Mm.
felt depressed
Mm.
when I had to tone myself down.
Yeah.
I lost my personality. I lost my happiness. I trying to be smart and a businesswoman and not swear and just be so kind, and I actually nearly ended up with depression. So
I think
yeah.
we, wear the mask to try and protect ourselves, vulnerability, right? From our past, our shame, or whatever we might carry with us. But, and we wear it to protect ourselves, but ultimately it actually holds us back. Did you find that by just being yourself, that life flourished even more?
Well, I'll tell you a bloody good one. I hired this speaker coach and she was, she wanted me to be a thought leader. And so she said, we're going to have this keynote presentation so amazing that you are going to be a thought leader. And I was like, oh, yes. So I worked with her for about a year, polished this presentation, and I hated it. I hated it so much, but she's like, no, Stacey, you've got to do this. If you want to be taken seriously, you've got to do this. You don't want to be a one-hit pony or whatever it's called, one-hit wonder, I don't know. And I hated it. And so I had this gig coming up and I thought, you know what, I'm going to ask 3 of my speaker bureau managers that I know and a friend who do not blow smoke up my ass. They will tell me as it is. And I said, I need you guys to come and watch me do this presentation because, and I didn't tell them why, but I wanted them to, I said, I need you to tell me the honest truth. And every single one of them, one of the guy comes up to me, he says, Stacey, there is no way that I'm going to book you with that one. I'm not booking you through my bureau. The other one comes up and he goes, do you want the honest answer? And I said, yes. And he goes, that was fucking shit. He goes, that was shit. That is not you. Then the other guy says, Stacey, I've seen you before and that is not you. And the four of them all said it was shit. Yet everyone else came up to me, oh my God, you're so amazing, Stacey. That was amazing. But
Wow.
the people that knew me, the realist, knew that that was so fake. I hated it. Anyway, that was the when I needed permission to say, I'm sacking that person. I loved it. And I'm going to go and do my presentation the way I want to. So the way
Yeah.
you saw me present, that was me, and that's how I want it to be. And I will never polish myself down again because you just lose yourself. You do,
Yeah.
you just lose yourself.
Such an important lesson.
Yeah.
I loved your presentation. I'd encourage anyone to find you if you're speaking somewhere local to them. Go out there and watch Stacey speak. It's amazing to watch. I really love just your authenticity, coming on here and just sharing your story so openly. And there's so many lessons in that. Whilst we don't have the particular tools, there's just key points throughout this interview that I think are really beneficial. How can people best reach out to you, Stacey?
Oh God, my website, www.staceycurrie.com, or I'm over on Insta every now and again. I don't promote that much. Yeah, just my website,
I'll stick the website in the link.
staceycurrie.com.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, it's been
yeah.
a pleasure, Stacey. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hope you've enjoyed it.
Yes.
And guys listening, check it out at thehiddenwhy.com. The links for Stacey will be in there as well. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon.